I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I hope each and every one of you get some benefit from the talk tonight. I suppose how myself and Jack ended up meeting was that several people from Salustra had come to us as clients, mostly with heart problems, after taking a heart attack. Or we had one, a great friend of Jack's actually with us, and he was falling asleep all the time. He couldn't drive his car any longer. He even fell asleep eating his dinner one night, and his wife gave out to him. And what was actually happening to him was that his blood pressure was too low, but more importantly, his CASP was too low. The CASP is your central aortic systolic pressure. The systolic, of course, is the high figure on your blood pressure, and it's a reading from the aortic valve. And it's sort of not really taken very seriously in a lot of times, because we often panic when blood pressure is too high, but often when blood pressure is too low, it's ignored. And in this case, this guy was very fit. He did martial arts, he trained every week, and yes, he couldn't drive his car anymore because he was falling asleep. And Lorraine, my wife, she has a machine called a B-Pro, and on CASP it's 99.17% as accurate as an angiogram. So it gives us a very good reading of how the heart is functioning. So what was happening to this man was, when he was training, his heart was pumping quite well. But when he wasn't training and he was just living normally, his heart was actually slowing too low, and it wasn't actually pumping the blood around. So what the machine measures is that when the heart actually pumps, the heart should take a split second to rest before more blood comes back before the heart pumps again. So with high blood pressure, generally what it is the heart is actually not getting enough rest. But in this man's case, his heart was actually getting too long of a rest. And it's just as dangerous. And what it was affecting was this quality of life, being able to do normal things, like just sort of even watching the film at home, he was falling asleep. So again, what we did was put him on the Salustra, the powders. And again, if the CASP is too high or if it's too low, it brings it up to its proper balance, which is very fascinating that it'll actually work on both levels. So within 3 months, this man, his heart was coming back up to the proper level. After 5 months, we had it perfect. He won't live without the Salustra product now, because it gives him energy, it keeps his heart right. The great thing about it is that it corrects it. So it's not something, if he doesn't want to take it for the rest of his life, he doesn't have to. Within the 5-month period, it corrects it, which is fascinating, because most cases in medication, it controls it, but it never actually reverses it. Where the powders, I'll explain more as we go along, the powders can actually correct it, which is brilliant. So these people had come to us, again, we're all part of Chartford's, and they talked very highly of Chartford's, and they also talked very highly of Jack. So again, the connection was made through members and then to Jack. When I met Jack first, I was after doing a long week and I was very tired and I wasn't in great form, to be honest with you. And I was going up to meet Jack and I was thinking, oh no, network marketing. And I said, you know, they won't want this product. So when I met Jack and Barry, I was a little bit rude, I slapped the product in the front of the table and I said, listen, this is the Rolls Royce of products. You'll probably want to water it down. And to my amazement, Jack listened to me. He was very polite and he listened to me. And after about 15 minutes telling him about the product, he said, is there any way you can make it better? So I started thinking, this is different. This is not the way of doing things. And after about an hour talking to him, I saw Jack leaning over to Barry and he said, whispered to him, he said, imagine the difference this could make to our members' health. And I thought, this is different. I'm talking to different people than I originally had a mindset of. So from that, we had several meetings back and forward. And as I got to know more Jack and Barry, I really felt that they thought differently, they acted differently, and I ended up realising I had a huge amount of respect for them. So that's how we came together with the products. I looked around at all the lads. There was the two Barrys, there was Wayne, there was Jack, and I said to Barry Bashford, I said, Lorraine has the B-Pro in the car, and I said, if only one person gets checked today, I said, you need to get checked. Because I could see in his complexion that he either had a heart problem or he was going to have a heart problem. And we checked him and realised, yeah, that his cardiovascular health needed to improve. He explained then to us that he had taken a heart attack several years before that. So Barry really wants to put me to the test, and I said to him, right, I'll do a program for you, which we did. And after 4 months, he realised, went back to his doctor, got checked, his blood pressure had come down, his cholesterol had come down, his sugars had halved, so they went from 6 to 3, and everyone was telling him how well he looked. So the guys put it to the test before it was launched to anybody, to make sure that they could see the benefit of it. And I was so delighted then when Barry was looking better and feeling better with it. So I suppose where I'm coming from, just to explain, I'm 28 years doing holistic therapy, from massage, reflexology, psychotherapy, hypnosis, counselling, and then nutrition, and then later training on the B Pro. So again, what I do is probably in an hour I combine a lot of therapies for people when they come to me. The first thing I do is reflexology, and it gives me a map of the person's body, so I can see how the liver, how the kidneys, how the lymphatics, how the heart, how everything is functioning. And from that, I don't get caught up in content, even though people might be in a lot of pain or discomfort. If I get caught up on content, I'm no use to them. I've discovered the structure, and the structure is the most important thing. So if I can find the structure of that person's illness, then I can reverse it. So even though they might come in with swollen joints, they might come in with sinus problems, I have to discover what that individual, where is it actually coming from? Because if we just work with maybe sinuses or with joints, we're going to miss a lot. And that's what happens in a lot of medicine, is that we end up just focusing on the area that's showing, but it mightn't be where it's coming from. So the structure, say with someone maybe comes into me with sinus or joint problems, can come back to actually the digestive system. And so many people suffer with digestive problems when you see the amount of antacid tablets that are sold. But yet, if we take those tablets, it just keeps weakening our hydrochloric acid or stomach acid. So if I took a drop of your stomach acid and put it on this wooden table, it would eat through the wooden table. It's meant to. It's meant to be there to break down proteins and the rest of our foods. So in a lot of cases, what's happened is that the stomach acid is weakened. And when the stomach acid is weakened and we eat, we don't break our food down properly. So a lot of times our food is passed on, and it's only maybe a third, half digested. And it's the other half that's not digested problem that causes the problems. So leaky gut syndrome is much more common than we realise. And what happens is that people generally drink with their food. So now you're not getting enough saliva enzymes from your mouth. The food is flushed through too quickly. There's not enough stomach acid. The liquid weakens the stomach acid. Now your food is left sitting in your stomach. You feel bloated, tired, low energy. And the food then the body has two choices. It either holds onto it and waits till there's more acid to produce, and this is where we get then often acid reflux, or else the body will flush it, causing diarrhea, just get rid of it. Depends on the energy level of the body. So this food then is not digested properly. You're not getting your vitamins, minerals, amino acids, energy from your food. But also it causes leaky gut, where acids and gases leak back up through our system. So suddenly now, to get the body's mechanism to get rid of these is that it takes calcium, magnesium, hemoglobin from your blood, calcium and magnesium from your muscle and your bone, alkalizing minerals to get rid of these acids. So over time, if this keeps going, eventually your muscle tissue, your bone gets low in calcium, magnesium, your blood gets low in hemoglobin, iron. And now the body becomes over-acidic. Now the acid starts to affect our joints. It gets in around the joint. It causes the tendons to swell. It starts to build up fluid, because the mechanism of the body is when there's acids, it doesn't want them getting down into your cartilage, it would destroy them. It doesn't want them getting into your organs, it would damage them. So it makes fluid. So the first three places is the thighs, arms, and around the waist. So that's why you see slim women and they can have these big arms. You know, you can have big thighs, and yet it's not fat, it's actually fluid, and the fluid is there because of acids in the system. These acids, if they're left too long in the joints, crystallize, and they go into like little sharp part of glass. If you saw it under a microscope, they rub against the wall of the muscle, the tendon, they cause them to swell. Now the joint starts to press too much on itself, and the cartilage gets extra wear and tear. And all of this is happening, again, now you're told you've got rheumatoid arthritis, gouty arthritis, and again, if you give a medication for your joints, where the problem actually is originating from the digestive system. So again, this is my job, is to look at the structure and discover where does it originate from. So when people come to me, it's very important, even though I might think I have a body of knowledge of rheumatoid arthritis, of digestive system, I need to leave that over to one side and look at the person as an individual. Because again, I met a woman there last night, and there was 3 women, three of them had rheumatoid arthritis. One of them had extreme pain in her knees. The other had, her wrists were fused together with calcification, which I'll talk later, another form of arthritis. And the other person, her eyes were completely dry. And it's all from the one complaint. So if I can look at the person as an individual, discover their structure, then I can bring my body of knowledge in about rheumatoid, gout, whatever, stomach, and it makes more sense. So then I found that individual's pattern, and then I can actually reverse it. And that's the way I've approached things. Starting off as a therapist 28 years ago, I came from a cycling background, and we were always focused on, you know, having your health right. We didn't have the money at the time to buy supplements, so we used to get the shells of eggs, take the membrane out, crush them down into as much as we could, put honey with them, and eat them for our calcium. And we would do anything to have an edge on the next guy. And we were always trained to focus on, okay, this race was a training, the next one you wanted to win, the next one you wanted to get into the top 3, the next one. So you had your plan, your goal set out. So when as I started off as a therapist, and I was very lucky, the man that trained me actually took me on, which I was over the moon with, because I got an amazing amount of experience working with him. But when I met all the people, nobody had goals. They hadn't even got goals to be healthy. So I was stunned by it, that people weren't focused on that. So I used to ask them to give me 3 reasons for being healthy, 3 advantages for being healthy. And they would struggle. They would literally struggle with 3. And they'd look at me as if I had 6 heads. And you'd have to help it to draw it out of them to get 3 advantages to being healthy. Quite amazing when you think we should be focused on being healthy. But most people were always focused on being sick. So again, it was getting their minds to change, to actually start to focus on being healthy. So again, it's a little bit like, I suppose, if I ask all of you guys tonight, listen, while you're sitting here tonight, and I know you're all very intelligent, I don't want you to think of a blue tree, right? Please don't think of any blue trees, right? No blue trees at all. What's the first thing you're thinking of? A blue tree, right? Don't think of being sick, right? This is what happens. It's very subtle. We don't realise we're doing it, but we are more likely to be thinking of what we don't want rather than what we do want. So again, it's just making slight changes. So when people come to me, I get them to say, I'm free from my illness. And it makes such a difference in your mind, because to be free from something means your illness is here and you're over here, you're away from it. So it changes. The next question I started to ask people, and they would really look at me, is I'd say to them, give me one disadvantage of being healthy. And that really used to baffle them. But it's amazing the amount of people that would say, when you gave them time to think about it, they'd say, well, if I was to get better, I wouldn't get as much attention. Yeah. If I got better, I'd have to go back to work. So in their mind, they hadn't, maybe some of them hadn't purposely set out consciously to think of it like that, but on an unconscious level, they had an advantage of actually being sick. So my job was get them to look at it and then have the respect to give them the choice to say, yeah, I don't want to do that. Or some of them would say, no, I actually, thank you very much. it saves my time as a therapist and it saves their time and money, so that they have that choice. And I'll give you an example. We had a woman come to, a lovely woman, come to us, but she's married to a very famous man in Ireland. And she was discovered that she had a form of MS. It wasn't full MS, but it was a form of MS all down the left-hand side of her body. So she would slightly drag the leg at times when she got tired, and she came to me. And we worked with her over a couple of months, and she was getting better and better and better. And she was probably, you know, as I thought, she was a couple of sessions away being finished with me. And she rang me, and she said, thanks very much for everything, but I'm finished coming to you. And I said, why? You said, you're about 80% better. I said, would you not come back and just get the last 20%? And then I said, see me once every 2 months for maintenance. And she said, no, you don't realise. She said, since I got sick, I said, my husband rings me 4 times a day. He comes home early. He brings me out for a meal now at least once or twice a week. He lets me have a drink, which before he was anti-drink. He let her have a drink. And she was getting to spend more time with him. She says, I'm not willing to let that go. So she was respectful enough for me and for herself to actually have made a decision. And about a year later, I saw her coming down the main street and of a town near us. And of course, her husband, she was linking her husband, and people were waving at him and shaking hands with him. And she was chuffed. She was smiling from ear to ear, walking beside me. She spotted me on the far side of the street, and she went. And she was still dragging that like a little bit. So sometimes when we meet people, like you guys are going to have these products and you're going out to meet people, not everybody wants to be healthy. We might think in our minds, that's a done deal. Everybody wants to be healthy. But sometimes you'll come across people who don't want to actually be 100% well because, again, they have an advantage of being unwell. So just to give you an idea of it. In doing the therapy, I was very lucky. The way I was trained, I first trained as actually a massage therapist, and the way I was trained was that when you came into the room to work with someone, you left all your problems, looking forward to going on holidays or anything, you left them at the door. And you came into the room with a clear mind. So when you were working with the person doing, say, the massage, you got into your stance, you got into your, starting to do your strokes, you concentrated 100% on every stroke. So you were just focused 100% on every movement, feeling into their muscle tissue, their joints. And this would give me, as a therapist, a lot of information. So I could tell you whether you had low vitamin C levels, whether your protein levels were low, whether you had uric acid, organic acid, acid ash, pneumonia, whether you had calcification in your system, whether you were low in B vitamins, whether you were suffering with maybe adrenal fatigue. So from working with someone, I was in a great position because I could actually pick up so much information on that individual. And then that information, as part of the structure, I could put together a plan of how we were going to get them well. So again, if you're working like that and you're in the now and you're totally focused on the individual, it's addictive. You end up doing too many massages, working too many hours, because it's so real. You're not talking about the weather or Coronation Street or anything like that. You're just with that individual, and it really is addictive. So again, you've got to control the amount of hours that you actually work at. With that then, as I said, developing the products, like the Salustra, it is based around that structure. The product is not just throwing a heap of ingredients into a pot. We started off with the product probably with about 14 ingredients in it. And then we realised that from doing testing on the B-Pro, Lorraine would test people, we'd be able to put them on the powders, she'd retest them then after 6 months, we'd see the changes in their arteries, their heart reading, and then we would add more to the product to get a better result. One of the things, we probably changed it 7 times over about a 5.5-year period to get the product that we felt was absolutely right. One of the big learnings was that we probably got reductions of 30 to 40% in people's cardiovascular health with the first blend of powders we had. But those 40% we weren't seeing huge reductions, maybe only 5%. So we got in a bloods machine from Italy, we got trained with the company, and we started doing a blood analysis on people that weren't getting great results. There was 136 we took. And what we discovered was that if there was high levels of oxidative damage are free radicals in the body. The nitric oxide, rather than going into the pathway of the arteries in the heart, we're getting pulled off to get rid of oxidative damage in the body. This is what causes cancer, arthritis, and many other type of ailments. So what we had to do was go back and put selenium, pine bark extract into the product, increase the antioxidants. So now, after 2 months, the readings came right down with the 136. What was frightening was that we had a selection in the 136. The machine would read to 600. Probably about 130 to 140 would be normal readings of oxidative damage in the body. So when we tested, we were discovering that there was a smaller group out of the 136, that the machine was coming back saying 600 plus, 600 plus. And we thought, no, I'm not using the machine right. So we rang the Italian company, and very quickly they said, are they all women? And we said, yeah, actually they are, they're all women. And they said, ask them one question, are they on the contraceptive pill? And every one of them said yes. And it just showed us the amount of oxidative damage it was creating in the body. That the machine read to 600, and all these were 600 plus. So it took about 5 months to get their oxidative damage right down to where we wanted it. But it was an interesting one to look at. The other thing we discovered then was that there was still a small group of people that the powders weren't really getting the results that we wanted. And we went back again to do more tests, and we discovered that they were suffering with a thing called adrenal fatigue. And it's more common than people realise. Your adrenal glands are about the size of a grape. They sit on top of your kidneys like a little cap, but they're the most powerful gland probably in the body, and they produce adrenaline. Now, adrenaline is harmless. Within 2 to 3 minutes, it's burnt up in the system. But it also produces a hormone called cortisol. So again, when you've got high levels of cortisol, wow, you can take on the world. You've got an amazing energy. But what happens is it collapses, and you run into adrenal fatigue. And again, it's not very pleasant. I suffered with it myself, so I can have first-hand experience of it. The first thing is it affects us mentally, concentration, memory. The second stage, it probably causes to sort of low belief in yourself. The third stage is that you lose interest in life. So if someone says to you, come on, we go shopping, you'll be saying, it might rain, never get a car spot, you know, there might be nothing in the shops. You'll come up with everything negative in it. The last stages of it is a form of, depression is probably too strong of a word, but a form of depression where you just don't want to mix, blend in with people, work with people, see people. And this is, people are not, yeah, it's not very nice. I tell you, I worked for about 7 years, flat out, 10 in the morning to 10 at night, Monday to Friday. I'd finish maybe 6 o'clock on a Saturday. It was half day to me. And I did it for about 7 years. And one day I came into a therapy centre, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I sat down, and I didn't make a sound, but the tears were just running down my face. And I thought, something's not right, and something is wrong here. And sure, next thing I twigged it myself. It's adrenal fatigue. Time for a holiday. Time to reassess everything, which I did. So it's not very pleasant. You're not enjoying life. You're just going through the motions of it. So adrenal fatigue is very common. And again, we found that it wasn't, again, the nitric oxide was being drawn off to deal with that rather than getting into the arteries. So we put vitamin C and vitamin E into the product. And vitamin C is actually stored in your adrenals. It helps to balance your adrenals. So when you hear people saying vitamin C is water soluble and passes through, it's not quite right. The adrenal glands actually stores. Vitamin E helps to balance the adrenal glands as well. And when you can get your cortisol level balanced again, gives you a new lease of life, back to being in good form. The problem with it is when you get adrenal fatigue, it affects your serotonin levels. In men, it makes us aggressive. Right, so we you know, road rage, flying off the handle, and then a few seconds later you're going, oh, Jesus, what did I do that for? In women, it's slightly different. It's more emotional. So they could be watching even an advert, and a cat comes on, and next thing they start to cry. It affects them that way. The danger with adrenal fatigue is that it also creates high estrogen levels. Now, calcification, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, this is why we do a mammogram. they're looking for white spots, which is calcification. So if you have high estrogen levels and calcification, unfortunately it's a lovely place for cancer to live. And it's probably the #1 reason women get breast cancer. So again, this is why it's so important when you look at something like methotrexate or the pill, it creates a lot of oxidative damage, which doesn't help adrenal fatigue, and then creates a lot of estrogen. So you can see a combination of things can happen that leaves the body open in an environment that cancer can actually live. So again, this is why it's so important to get adrenal glands back into balance as well. So when we did that, as I said, we started to catch a lot of people then that we were constantly seeing good results. When Lorraine was retesting them, we were getting good results. We discovered, working with one chap which I'll talk about later, James, he was on Diavan when we had him on the powders. And Diavan is actually a cool little drug. It expands your arteries and veins so that the heart finds it easier to pump the blood. Not being a doctor, I can't give out Diavan, so I went in search of something that would work equally like it. And what I came across was, I remember the talk about 10 years ago, and they were talking about octocosnol. So it comes from wheat germ. And octocosnol does the same. It opens the artery slightly. It drives more oxygen into the artery. So what would take us 4 months to get a result, now that reduced by a month. Putting one ingredient in it made a difference that we actually could get results in 3 months rather than 4 months. The other ingredient then we put into was K27, and K27 got its clinical trials finished there a year and a half ago, and it proves that K27 absorbs calcification into the bone, which I'll talk about calcification in a moment. So again, it was the combination of ingredients. Some of the ingredients are there to support the nitric oxide, taurine, energy for the heart, the CoQ10, the electricity of the heart, and then the nitric oxide supports some of the other minerals that are in it, like the alpha-lipoic acid. So we put the alpha-lipoic acid in for all my clients that had diabetes and had got numbness in their toes and their fingers, and when we put the alpha-lipoic acid in, the nitric oxide could carry it into the nerve endings much quicker than normal. And so we started to see results that people that had lost feelings in their toes or their fingers, it started to come back. We had one very funny incident, his wife told us about it. She heard it, he was up in the bedroom, and next thing all she heard was a string of Fs, and he hopping around the floor. He'd knocked his toe against the bed, at the leg of the bed, and then she could hear him laughing because he hadn't felt his toes for 2 years. And suddenly now he was delighted to have pain in his toes. So we started to see very good results with the diabetics. Nitric oxide and some of the other ingredients like taurine and the alpha-lipoic acid actually help with sugar levels. So it has a positive effect for diabetics. It stops this slump in 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock that they go looking for a chocolate bar. It's a great time for them to take the product. To leave the product to one side, as a therapist, I've campaigned for over 20 years about calcification. And I was very lucky to get a lot of radio stations to promote me and to put it on it, and eventually a doctor in Ireland picked up on me and asked me what was I doing telling people these things, and she got more interested. She went on national radio to talk about it, which I was blown away with and delighted. Recently, in the last 3 years, a man that actually became a client of mine, David Bobbitt, he makes kitchens for McDonald's all across the world. His company turns over 400 million a year. He goes every year and gets a health check, and he wasn't feeling very well. He was in America, and someone said to him, "Go and get a calcium check done." Never heard of it before. For what? So he went and got this calcium check done, and he discovered he'd something like 7 times over the levels of calcification in his body. Never heard of the word calcification before in his life. And what calcification is what it builds up as kidney stones, gallstones, hardening of the arteries, deposits in our joints, osteoarthritis, and it causes many other complaints. And when I'm massaging people or working with them on a physical level, I have to break down this calcification in their system, which can be quite painful. It depends on the blend. So it could be calcium carbonate, magnesium carbonate, cadmium, it could be ferric iron, which is a metal, it could be manganese, which is another metal in people's system. And where it mostly comes from is our water. So we look at our glass of water and it looks clear, but this particular water, if we look at it, it's got 40 milligrams. It's not one of the highest. We've one at home that's 120 milligrams. That's 40 milligrams of calcium carbonate in the water. We're lucky if we can absorb 3% of that. The rest is cast off as waste. If you look at it, there's also magnesium in it, which is an inorganic form. We can't absorb it. And what the difference is that it's lacking in one thing, and that's carbon. So if a mineral comes directly from rock through water, it doesn't have carbon, and the human body can't break it down. It's cast off as waste in the system. Now, it depends on how acidic and how alkaline your body is, how much is going to get stuck in the system. So you can have 3 people drinking the same water. One is affected to a low level, another affected to a medium, and one is really crucified with it. And it depends on the acid levels in their body to how much is going to get stuck. When acid and calcification come together, it binds. So it makes it more solid in the system. Again, if it's a metal like ferric iron, it makes it even more stronger in the system. So the town that we work in, it has a lot of ferric iron in it, so you'll get a huge amount of hip replacements needed. You'll also get a lot of MS. I think last year in a small town, there was something like 5 people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And again, it's coming from the ferric iron. If you go out a quarter of a mile where we live, the water's completely different. It's actually acid. And when we moved into the house first, it had eaten through the copper pipes. And the 2 people that lived there couldn't walk because they had so much calcification in their feet. So the first thing I did was actually start to help them get rid of the calcification out of their feet. But what happens with acid water, if it's going through copper pipes, it's stripping the copper sulfur off the copper pipes. Now, if you're drinking that water, the World Health Organization shows that it's one of the reasons that can cause dementia and Alzheimer's, because it clogs the brain. So it looks innocent sometimes, our water, and it might even taste good, but it's very important to have it analysed to see exactly what's in it. So with calcification, it can lodge in people's joints, it can lodge in people's arteries. And David Bobbitt, he had so much in it, but he had a lot in his arteries. He was so fascinated by it, he produced a program called Heart of the Matter. You can Google and find it. And it showed how calcification can get caught in your arteries. The problem with calcification, and this is why this product is so important, the problem when it gets caught in your calcifications is you can go into Lorraine and the machine is 99% or 17% as accurate as an angiogram on CASP. It picks up on your arteries. You can go into the hospital and get an angiogram done, and both can send you home saying you're grand. Right? No real signs of any sort of problem. The problem is that calcification could be even 30% of a blockage in your artery. So it's not really causing a major problem. But the problem is you could walk away from us, away from a hospital, and you could be walking down the road, and at any given time, nobody can tell you when, the calcification can explode. You're gone. You have 100% blockage. And that's the danger. And that's why we see so many of our footballers, so many of our athletes, that they're getting their hearts checked, and they're told they're okay. They go out onto the pitch at training or playing a football match, and bang, they're gone. So one year, the first year actually that we had the machine, we had 3 11-year-olds with blockages in their arteries, calcification. And the reason that they got it was that they had been drinking a lot of soft drinks. 2 of them played football, Irish Gaelic football, and one of them swam. And he was swimming for his county. He was a good swimmer. The problem was they were all being given soft drinks. And it's great, we've got our rugby players like you guys, we idolise them, they're amazing men, and they're up on billboards holding these soft drinks. And it looks so cool, looks innocent, look, they're great, here's the drink. The problem is uric acid is high in carbonation. Carbonation is a low pH, and you've got sugar, which is a low pH. And when you've got that combination that goes into the system and it's not being flushed out, it can crystallise. Now, it can crystallise in the joints, or it can crystallise in your arteries. And with these 3 little guys, it had crystallised in their arteries. And when it gets into the artery, it rips it. Now, plaque, calcification, cholesterol has something to stick to. And this is where they were getting their blockages from. The little guy that was a swimmer, when he was running across the schoolyard, he collapsed. And his mum brought him to hospital. That age, you're just not thinking heart or arteries. It's the last thing you're thinking of. So he was sent home, his mother brought him in, Lorraine checked him, and next thing we find that he has like sort of somewhere around a 40% blockage in one of his arteries. He had 2 blockages. It took us 6 months to reverse it out of the system. So when we look at soft drinks, they might look innocent, like our water. They're not. They can be quite dangerous to people's health. And that's a thing to watch out for. So with David, as I said, he really thought this was great. He put together this program. It cost him 1.1 million. He paid it out of his own pocket, and he put it on national television in Ireland. And he thought, this is it. Cardiologists would be ringing him up saying, fantastic, thanks very much. The opposite. He was ridiculed in national newspapers. He was a scaremonger. He was this. And eventually one of them came out and said, there is no money in prevention for us. Which is right. The government don't pay them for prevention. They pay them to get sharper equipment to do the operations with less sous and quicker. And that's our system. You can't blame cardiologists. It's the system that they're in. And that's what they get paid. They don't get paid for prevention. Here's our solution. I really believe it. This is a solution for catching people before they run into these type of problems. So with calcification, the MS Society where we live, when they send people to me, they pay half their fee. They're that confident that people are going to get results with us. And one of our first people that we worked with, going back about 5 years ago, and it was great, Jack got to meet him when we gave the talk in Ireland, to show that he was real. A man called John Nolan. And John tells me to tell everyone the story. And John had MS 10 years when I met him. And we started working with him. And at the start, he really didn't take it that serious. He was sort of, it got a bit of relief. He started to feel better. He could work a bit better. But he wasn't really taking it serious until we actually showed him the results that he could get if he did take it serious. So as he took it serious, his limp got less in his leg. Initially when he came to me, he would have to sit in a chair, throw the trousers down and pull the trousers up that way. He couldn't stand and lift his leg to put his trousers on. So after about 6 or 7 months, we realised he could do this. He was delighted. He said, watch me, one day after doing a massage to show me how he could put his trousers on. He was so excited. So after about a year being on the product, he went back to his neurologist, Louise Redmond, and she noticed there's a long corridor, and she noticed he was walking better. She was stood and she watched him walking, and she realised he was walking better, and she said to him, do you know, I think I'm going to increase that medication, you're getting slightly better. So he's a very abrupt man, and he goes, I'm not on any medication. And she goes, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I'm taking these powders. And she says, what? Smith gave me these powders. So I was going in for my lunch, and next thing I got this telephone call, and it was Lobby. He goes, there's a woman here who wants to talk to you. So I got up the phone, and it was Louise Redmond. She goes, can you explain to me, what are you giving him? So I explained everything, and she said, I don't understand it. Will you send the information to me? So she rang back to say, okay, she said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do a brain scan next week. And in a year's time, we're going to do another brain scan. And this guy is going back on his medication. And I said, great. So a year went on. He was taking the powders he took. He would take 3 scoops every day. And, well, he would tell me this anyway. And so the brain scan happened. And she came in. A week later, she called him back, and she came into him and she said he's 8 scars to his brain. He's had 8 tears, bleeds to the brain. And over the year, they would expect that he should have 2 more. So to their amazement, the 8 were still there, but the 8 were getting smaller. They were shrinking. So she rang me and she said, there's nothing medically to do this. And she was amazed. And she says, we're going to do another brain scan next year. Leave him on the powders. So the next year passed by, in again, the same thing, no new adhesions, and the 8 scars are even smaller again. The 3rd year was recently, a couple of months ago, and again, they've got smaller. But he's working full time, he has good quality of life. When he gets tired, yeah, you can still see a little drag in the leg, but everybody remarks how well he is. He's a man, I think 2 years ago he raised 120,000 for the MS Society. He's that type of character. If you give him a bit of energy, he's off. So now they wrote to his GP and they said, not only has the MS stabilised, but his MS is actually reversing. So they've actually put it in paper for him, which is quite amazing. So quite a lot now are on the powders for a year that have MS, and we're going to see the difference with them. So we know it gets into the brain, but we didn't know what it really would do. And John is really our first person that we can see a big change with him. If I can get calcification out of people's system, no matter what ailment they have, it improves. It doesn't cure. I'm not saying that. It doesn't cure MS. It doesn't cure motor neuron disease. But once I can remove it, their quality of life comes back. And I really believe, working with so many people over the years, that calcification is the underlying for many different ailments, many different diseases. And as I said, if it gets caught in the breast and fungus grows on it, high estrogen levels, it is a lovely environment, unfortunately, for cancer to live. A couple of years ago, when I was training people to do a massage, we were very lucky. We had 2 nurses from Waterford Hospital that dealt with women with cancer, or people with cancer, they brought most of the group down one day to show them people sitting in a waiting room that suffered with cancer. And I asked for all the women to break, and it's not in our culture, but to break sort of a thinking process, and that any woman that came to them, asked them would it be okay to massage their breast, because if the calcification can be broken up and moved, then there's less chance of breast cancer. And it's something very simple. So I trained all the women to do it, and the 2 women that were in the hospital talked to the doctors, and the doctor said, yeah, go and do it, it makes sense, which was brilliant to see, and the feedback then from them was quite amazing with that. So when we look at the structure of people's health, and then we look at something like calcification, acids, they are the underlying of a lot of different ailments, whether it be arthritis or even more serious complaints than that. In the powders, the biggest thing the powders do, if you're explaining it to anyone, the biggest thing they do is drive more oxygen into the body. So that's why there's clinical trials being carried out at the moment with, say, kidney failure, for help with kidneys, with Parkinson's disease, with many other things. Because what they've realised is that nitric oxide creates higher oxygen levels throughout the system. So with it, it takes away ammonia, lactic acid, uric acid more efficiently out of the body, and it drives nutrition into areas more efficiently. So the body has a better chance of repairing whatever might need to be repaired. How we got thrown into all of this was, I was working away with people with arthritis. People would drive 4 hours to get to see me, which I used to be amazed at, to get to work with me. And I would work, as I said, from 10 to 10. I was just totally focused on my job and working with people. And one of my best friends, his name is John Bass. And he's a great character. He has a really positive outlook on everything. And a friend of his from Mayo rang him and said a terrible story about her nephew, that he was only given 6 weeks to live. The chap, he's 6'6", so he asked me, would there be any chance I'd see him? And he had a rare form of arthritis that had attacked his arteries, and his artery wall had actually thinned to the level they couldn't do an angioplasty, they couldn't do stents. They couldn't do anything with him because the wall had got stripped so much. So he came down to me, and as I said, he's 6'6". His whole arm was purple, and his nails were black, and he couldn't keep his head up. There was very little blood getting down the left-hand side of his body. And I started to work with him. He came and he lived with me for a week. So I used to see him before work, and then when I'd come home at 10 o'clock or after 10, I'd start to work with him again. And in the meantime, I heard about a Dr. Joseph Pendergast in California. And I rang him and said, got a secretary, got talking to him, and I said to him, can I fly out? If I bring all this guy's information, can I fly out to you? And maybe you might be able to throw some light and we can do something for him. And to my amazement, he said to me, you're far from Limerick. I said, no. I'm sure Ireland is a small country. It wouldn't be that far from Limerick, no matter where you were. And he said to me, he said, I'm giving a lecture in Limerick University and you have an hour and a half of my time. So I was just amazed, just delighted. So 4 days later, or 5 days later, I was whizzing myself down to Limerick University, listening to him talking. And he amazed me because the first thing he did is he walked out on the stage, he put his 2 hands up and he said, I'm going to die someday, but I'm never going to die of a stroke or heart attack. And I thought, wow, there's a statement and a half. And of course it was L-Arginine he was talking about. So he talked and he looked and he told me what to put together for this guy, that we needed quite a lot of ingredients. We needed to do it, and he said to me, you'll have him right in 6 months' time. And I thought, he said, 6 months, 6 weeks to live in 6 months. Do you know, I was thinking, I said to him, Jesus, I said, are you sure? Because, like, you know, this is... And he got red in the face, he picked up all the files and then I had to, and he bounced them off the table, and he says to me, I see this every day of the week, he'll be right in six months' time. I said, right, okay. 7 months, he was a month out. 7 months, we had his arteries very good, not 100%, but he was in safe condition. Now, it sounds very romantic, it was actually extremely tough, because to take on somebody like that was pushing me as a therapist, what I believed in, to the limits. And one thing that we didn't realise is that when you go on to a product like Salustra, in the first 6 weeks your readings get worse. So 6 weeks after getting tested, I had his mother, his father, his cardiologist shouting at me, going, what are you doing? Now I know in 6 weeks it gets higher. So it took a huge amount of belief on his part and my part to actually say, he said to me, Colin, you're the only one that's going to get me right. And I said, well, it's the information I've got that's going to get you right, not me. So we just stuck together. We just made a pact and we stuck together. And that's where, now, when he was lying on my plinth and I was working, he'd so much calcification in the artery, but he'd more on the outside of the artery, pressing on the artery. And literally I had to get my fingers into his spine and work and work and work to break the calcification down. He would be grabbed onto my plinth, and at the end of each session there would be a pool of tears on the floor. It wasn't easy, by no means on him. But eventually the calcification cleared and cleared and cleared, and his health got stronger and stronger. The nicest part of the story was a huge learning for me, and I was very respectful to have the opportunity to see it working. But the amazing part of the story, his brother finished his degree in biochemistry and went on to be a doctor. James finished his degree in business and he's gone on to be a doctor. So I think they're going to be two amazing doctors. So again, totally believe in this product for changing around his life. There wasn't even as many ingredients in it then as there is now. There's probably 10 more than what we worked with him. So again, we were suddenly thrown into, Lorraine was training on a B-Pro, and we were getting huge amounts of publicity from radio stations. We had 140 people booked up in Galway one day. Keith Finnegan from Galway Bay FM came in, looked around and said, this is a scam. Let's use our ripping people off. And I said, right, he says, test me, and I'm going to record you. And I said, no problem, give me 15 minutes, go and have a cup of coffee, come back in 15 minutes, Lorraine will be free and she'll test you. So he recorded, he listened, he went through everything, and he left, and he went out the door saying, huh, to me sort of, and he was gone. An hour and a half later I got a phone call saying, this is the most amazing thing. You can come in off the street, go into a hotel, and you guys can tell about the health of your heart and arteries. It is brilliant. I want you on the radio the next day. So he played 20 minutes of being tested, and then he had me on the radio for an hour, which was just brilliant, just great. We ended up seeing 600 people. And rather than being up there for a couple of days, we ended up being 3 weeks in Galway and testing people. So it was quite amazing. We had this type of reaction then around the country, that people wanted to come and get tested and to find out more about it. So that was where we were thrown suddenly into working with people with heart and arteries. It wasn't something we ever set out or planned to do. We were sort of thrown into deep end, which was amazing. With the product, as I said, it's not a cure for everything. The main thing is to drive more oxygen into every part of the body, and it carries. So it even works with medication. The only medication that we don't say to work with is warfarin, We know Dr. Sultan gives it to people that are on maybe less than 5 grams of warfarin, but again it's the one. But any blood pressure, beta blockers, cholesterol medication, it actually helps to work. And what we find is that when people go on the product, we send them back after 6 months, because the doctors will then lower or adjust their medication to suit. Because as the powder corrects things, you don't need as much medication. So again, eventually sometimes people are even taken off their medication. So it's nice to work with. The golden rules with it is warfarin, just stay clear, check with the doctor, make sure the cardiologist is happy. Most cardiologists understand the nitric oxide, and some of them love to work with it, some of them don't. So it depends. The other golden rule, and I don't know why anyone that's selling L-Arginine should be telling people, and I just don't know why they're not. If someone takes a heart attack, you must wait 3 months before you give them the powder. On clinical trial, they have killed people that had taken heart attacks and they gave the powder too quick. So if someone has taken a heart attack, it's a no-no for 3 months. If they've taken a stroke, you can give it to them the next day. No problem. That has a totally different effect with people with strokes. But people with heart attacks, the wall of the muscle must rest and get into a good position before the nitric oxide goes in. Then it'll allow the muscle to stretch. Then it'll allow the muscle to come back all right. But you must have that 3-month period. The other thing is if people suffer with the herpes virus, cold sores, L-Arginine helps to grow the cold sores. So what you do, if someone has that, you recommend them to take lysine. It's another amino acid, and it's very good for killing the cold sores. So then they can take the powders, no problem. We wouldn't give it to anybody under 10. For you guys, just for insurance reason, 18 and above is really what you're going to be looking at. If you have somebody that's younger than that and has a heart problem, there is a support site. Refer them back to me, and we can negotiate what age then if it's suitable to give them, and that would be the safest for you guys as well, to be safe. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, again, it does act as a growth hormone. Okay, you don't become a bodybuilder, but it actually helps, which is a good thing for the growth of your hormone. And so again, breastfeeding or pregnancy, don't. It's a no-no. After that, as I said, any other medication, there's no clash, or the one won't affect the other. The only thing is if people are honest for a period of time, they may have to reduce their cholesterol medication, they may have to reduce their blood pressure or beta blockers, because you are adjusting and cleaning out the system. So it's a good thing to refer back to have it adjusted. The big thing with cholesterol, I'd like to explain on the product. The product isn't designed to break down cholesterol. In most cases, it does lower cholesterol, but we don't sell it as cholesterol reducing medication or supplement. But what it does is, it brings the wall of the artery back to being smooth. So if you can bring the wall of the artery back to being smooth, it's the same as when you were a baby. And what that means is that if you've got even high cholesterol, it has nothing to stick to. So it just keeps whizzing around. It has to have the artery roughened before it sticks and builds up as a blockage. Otherwise, it just keeps whizzing around. So even if your cholesterol was 8, it would never actually cause a problem, because it's whizzing around the system. Again, just to refer back to Lorraine, Lorraine had 2 blockages in her arteries when she was 29, and she was being treated for asthma. And that, we find, is a lot of what we find, especially with athletes, that people are being treated for asthma where they actually have hardening of the arteries. Now, what Lorraine had in her artery was ferric iron, which is the toughest probably of all the calcifications in her artery, and it took us 9 months to get from sort of a 48% blockage, sort of 50% blockage, to 0. It took 9 months to get the metal out of the actual artery, which is the toughest, I think, probably of all the calcification. But in a 9-month period, it reduced that. We had, say, different situations where people couldn't be operated on because the artery was at the back of the heart that had blockages, and we had a 90% blockage, and it took about a year to actually reverse that to being clear. So it gives you an indication of what time scale we're looking at. With the product, in the first 6 weeks, generally you're detoxing. So that's why if we test you on the B-Pro and then test you 6 weeks later, the readings have generally gone up because everything is starting to break down and clear out of your system. And then after the 6 weeks are up, generally it starts to go into more like repair, putting flexibility back into the artery, putting flexibility back in the heart. And that's when people generally feel more of an energy, is after 6 weeks. But sometimes people after 2 weeks will notice an energy. It depends on probably your makeup or your system as well. And that's, you know, that's what happens. So the detox, sometimes people can go to the toilet more, and this is a good sign. It means that the toxins are actually leaving your system, that the product is actually, it's actually breaking down. So 1 scoop a day is like for maintenance. If people have heart problems, you can give them 2 scoops a day. The maximum we would usually have somebody on will be 3. We don't generally give any more than 3. Athletes, maybe, you know, we were working with Irish dancers actually in Birmingham last year, and they were coming up to their worlds, and they were on 4 scoops a day, and they would take a scoop before training. It's a really good time if you're going for a walk. Take your scoop of powder 20 minutes, half an hour before going for your walk or training, because as you walk and train, your arteries naturally open that little bit more, and it means the powder can actually be more efficient getting into the area that's needed. So it's a good time to recommend. Don't take it too close to food. Have at least half an hour before or after. It just digests better. With diabetics, tell them to take it when they feel a bit of a sugar dip, and it's much better than a bar of chocolate. It'll give them genuinely a good boost of energy. So the Salustra, it's in powder form. It's going to be done in sachet form, which I think is brilliant, so that you control a few in your car, your pocket, your handbag. When you're going on holidays, you can just take the amount that you need, and, you know, just open it, put it in, stir it up, and drink it, which again I think is going to be really good way of taking it. So that's the Salustra product. The next product that we have is the Purifica, and it to me it's a connection of digestive enzymes, and it's got hydrochloric acid in it. Again, from even the age of 10, our hydrochloric acid starts to drop. And it again helps to promote more hydrochloric acid so that you can break down proteins much better. It has digestive enzymes in it to break down your fats, carbohydrates, and protein. And then it has ileum, which again is a digestive fibre, which helps to clean out your intestine and promote good bacteria in it. I suppose when we're born, our muscle tissue is full of enzymes, so we can nearly eat anything and get away with it. But by the time we're 16 or 18, we've used up all these enzymes. So we're relying on our body to produce the enzymes. So our pancreas, our liver, our gut produces enzymes. And again, by the time we're sort of in our 30s, this starts to decrease in the body. By the time we're in our 40s, it really decreases, that we're not producing enough enzymes. So we're not able to break our food down efficiently. And we're not getting the value. And as I said, this is where a lot of digestive problems come from, leaky gut, which can lead on to arthritis and many other ailments. So we really feel that Purifica, the blend that it is, enzymes are the missing link in nutrition, because most of the food we're eating now is cooked, pasteurized. So it's dead. It has no enzymes in it. So you're really relying on your body to produce enzymes, which doesn't always happen efficiently. So by taking the digestive enzymes, it helps to break down your food, so you're getting more vitamins, minerals, amino acids, oils from your food. And the great thing is so that you're not hungry then an hour later. You know, it keeps the food producing the proper levels of absorption. So again, it means that you sustain energy much longer with it. So it is an amazing product, and definitely if we're over 40, it's a must. For athletes, they're training, they're pushing themselves, and again, it just means that they're going to convert their food they have much more efficiently into their energy that they need. But enzymes have many different, like it helps with the gut. So again, we're learning more and more that this is where our immune system can be affected from. So again, if we can keep our gut healthy, it usually means that we're promoting a better immune system. For diabetics, I suppose over the last year, they've realised one of the common thing with diabetics is that they're all extremely low in digestive enzymes. So by not breaking their food down properly, they are creating the resistance in the cell not to allow the insulin get into the cell. So again, they're looking at, again, enzymes as being one of the areas to stop people from getting diabetes, but to also help the people who have diabetes to be more in control of it. The great thing about the products is that you can combine them. So if you've got people with digestive problems, you can put them on the Purificatory, you can put them on the Gracilia, and you'll see amazing results with digestion. Our main aim with all the products is to increase energy. Right? So the focus is not on losing weight. In the therapy centre, I don't focus on losing weight. I focus on creating more energy. You create more energy, the person feels better, they feel more motivated, they get out of bed feeling good, and generally that, you know, is more important. The weight loss is nearly like a secondary thing. So again, mixing Purifica and Gracilia together, it just allows the person's digestion, immune system to feel full, to break down the food that you're eating, create more energy in the body, and it really does. You'll see the difference in it. I suppose that's what we're going to find. Some people have been on the product now for maybe 5 weeks, and in the meeting yesterday in Birmingham, they were starting to say what they felt different, that they started to feel more energy, they started to feel better. Even when you look at Jack, if you haven't seen him for a while, you can see his complexion has changed. You know, he looks brighter, healthier in the face, and again from the products, and that's what people will see with you taking it, and this is the feedback you'll get. And what's fascinating is that in 6 months' time, in a year, you're going to be up here and I sit down there, because you'll be telling me your story. You'll be telling me the story of your clients, of the people coming to you, and that's fascinating. Last Friday, a man that I trained a couple of years ago, we had lunch together, and I didn't get a word in, and I was so delighted I never got a word in, because he was so bursting to tell me about all the results with the people coming to him. He's got a B Pro, he puts people on the powders, and he just had so many stories, and I'm fascinated. I love that, and you guys will have to have the same thing. So even with the Salustra, again, for athletes, for people who are tired, people who are not well, Purifica will break down and absorb the Salustra much more efficiently in their system. So if someone is not very unwell or tired, or an athlete wants to perform better, they're an amazing 2 products to put together. So you can match them to create different results with people. And again, if somebody really wants to feel 100% or completely different, all 3 you can marry together. Put them in a combination, and within 3 months that person will be throwing bouquets at you because they feel so well. It's great. I suppose it's a bit unfair because I'm 28 years a therapist, so when I give something to somebody, I really believe in it. I've seen it work over and over and over again, and I can tell you these things, but more importantly, when it starts working for you or starts working for the people that you're giving to, now your belief system will be the same. You'll be so definite giving it out to people. You know, it's amazing. With the products, and it's only human nature, we'd be so excited to get people onto products like this. Sometimes we feel we're pushed into a corner that we feel we have to exaggerate a little bit. You'll hear other companies that sell maybe L-Arginine products saying it's going to anti-aging, make you better in the bed, and you know, you don't have to exaggerate. The ingredients work so well, all you have to do is be honest. And the more honest you are about it, the better, because I'll tell you why. If all of us took Salustra, if we all took it, it would work different in every one of us. It will work different in me than you. It'll work in a positive way, but it'll work different, because our bodies will use what's needed. So we can give people the guidelines, and then I nearly stand back and say, see how it's going to affect you in a good way. And watch it change. And then the person will come back and say, yeah, you're right. I went to the toilet more in the first couple of weeks, then I started to feel more energy, and now everybody's come saying, you're looking really well. You know, and that's the feedback that you'll get. As I said, it's not fair. I'm working with it for 5.5 years, developed it, so I just totally trust it and believe it. But you will gain the same belief and trust in the product yourself as you work with it. So again, you can mix and match, or you can get people on all products, and again, with mixing and matching, you'll see quicker results. It'll work more efficiently and more definitely in the system. I'll give into a little insight. We have 4 new products developed for November. And we're very excited because we have an amazing joint product. There's nothing out there to touch it. And one of the exciting things is it has all the normal glucosamine, chondroitin, MMS that you give for the joints, but it also has a high level of collagen. And we have then a lot of anti-inflammatory natural ingredients in it to get rid of the toxins, the waste, so that the other ingredients can get in and repair fluid, cartilage that's actually needed. But the one clever thing we've done with it is we've put in an enzyme to break it all down. Because if people's systems are tired or they have a lot of arthritis, they won't be able to produce enough of the enzyme to break what's needed to be absorbed. So we've put this into it so that we're not relying on the body, but that the product will actually be broken down for the person, which is going to be quite interesting. Again, the Purificatory mix with this would even increase it to be better. We have another product which I am so grateful to Jack and Barry for backing me on it. And it's a product I really believe in because we've seen amazing results with it. And what it is shark liver oil, oregano, and then we're going to have a good form of a good bacteria. We haven't quite decided. We're in trial period of actually just finishing that off. But oregano is the only thing I've ever found that cleans out the sinus. So many people suffer with sinuses and they don't even know it. And it's very wearing on the immune system, and people are treated for different things. It's washed out, it's scraped out, and it's back again a couple of weeks later. Oregano with the proper strength and proper quality, actually what it is a fungus in the back of the sinuses. And that's why an antibiotic doesn't do anything for it, because it doesn't kill fungus. So oregano actually kills 2 things. It kills the fungus, and what the fungus lives off is yeast. And the oregano kills the yeast as well. So it kills both. It kills the fungus and then it kills the yeast. The shark liver oil is just amazing. We've seen just incredible results with it. And shark liver oil, the French government have done 4 really powerful clinical trials on it, and they proved it kills cancer, it shrinks tumours. Now we're not going to be selling it for that because we'll only get into political waters. We're going to be selling it as an immune system. But in our own family, Lorraine's nephew, when he was 3, he discovered he had a brain tumour. Poor little chap, when he was running, he was going off to one side because the brain tumour was pulling him over. And they went in and did an amazing job. They opened up and they got as much as the brain tumour as they could. It's a rapid growing one. They couldn't get all of it. They got about 80% of it, 75, 80% they felt. And we put him on the shark liver oil, and a month later they rechecked, and to amazement it hadn't grown. They were delighted because they reckoned it would grow back even within a month. So his mum is from Turkey, and the Turkish people sent over loads of herbs to give him. So she thought she was doing the best thing. She took him off the shark liver oil, put him on the herbs, and 3 months later, bang, tumour's back, fully grown. So of course she was in trouble with all the family. He went in, got the second operation. They took as much as they could again. Couldn't take it all because it's attached to the brain, and put him on the shark liver oil. And he's 9 now, and it has never grown back. They only check him once a year. And this is the French government we're running on, the information. If the French government showed that if someone is on chemotherapy or radium treatment and you give them shark liver oil, they can give them more radium or chemo at a given time because it protects the immune system and it keeps the white cell count high. So that works. We've seen it work exceptionally well with people. So it's married with the oregano. It's a really powerful product for the immune system and keeping you safe from many different types of ailments. So I just have to thank the lads because it's a big commitment financially, because we have to buy so much at a given time. So they've really backed me on it, which I'm so grateful for. The next two products are for sexual health. Now, we're not going down the road of Summers, you can be safe for that, but they're for sexual health. So many people are struggling to have children because of cortisol levels in women. It blocks fertility. We're talking about that. Once I can get their levels down, then within 3 months they usually get pregnant. It's amazing to see it. Doctors in my own place actually send women to me to do reflexology and then to get them on a course to get their adrenal glands down. These are people that they found nothing wrong with them. They don't know why they're not getting pregnant. And as I said, it usually comes to cortisol levels as affecting them. So what we've looked at in men, we've looked at zinc, vitamin E to create healthy and more sperm, because the sperm count has dropped so much over the last 40 years. Environment, the pill getting into the water, many different things like that have had an effect on men. We've also looked at a good quality zinc for the prostate. So that zinc, when it's absorbed into the prostate, it helps to keep the prostate at its proper shape and size. You can buy zinc for $2.99 in any supermarket, but it's not going to do anything for you, unfortunately. We've put in a very good quality zinc so that it will do that. In men, yes, it's there. We've got more oxygen going to the penis for them, and we've got, as I said, to support them more sexual health in a good way. In women, it's there's actually an ingredient very good for the skin, but it's more for mood. So again, to make you feel happier, sort of well in yourself, more balanced hormones. So again, from that point of view, that women feel more comfortable having sex. So that's the way we've approached it with those two products. So again, we've got we've got these through now coming out in August, and then probably late November we'll have 4 new products coming out. After Christmas, we've 3 new products coming out. We'll go there then another day.